Good morning, and welcome to the Plymouth Sunday Forum. We're very glad to have you here, whether you're here with us in person or online. And we're very glad to have the ones that braved the cold to be here. I hope you've had a chance to see the exhibit in the gallery. This program, in collaboration with the gallery committee, has to do with that exhibit, and it's a very wonderful exhibit and a wonderful program. Just a couple of brief reminders. Hearing aids are on the table in the hall. If you find those to be useful, please make use of them. And there is a microphone available at question time. If you would use that, we'll take it around so that those at home can hear your questions. John Kaul is an artist, photographer, and filmmaker, and a former lobbyist in the Minnesota legislature. Working in partnership with Indigenous artists, he now is using art to bring awareness to the public of the role of water in our lives and the critical need to protect its purity. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to John, and he can introduce his distinguished panel. Thank you.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank Plymouth Congregational for arranging for this session and for the good work you do. And next, I think I'll just introduce my friends who are here today. And I'd start with Sharon Day, who is America's version of Jane Goodall. And sitting next to her is Gio Cerise, whose picture, if you see it in the gallery, is at Minnehaha Falls. We selected that because we wanted water in the background, and that was 3 weeks before there was no water. So there was a message there about climate change in a way. Heidi Inman, what a delight it is to know all of you. But in the case of Heidi, one of the things that happened after I took her picture and put the show together, she was back in Germany because she was living there at the time, and she contacted me, and she was running bandages and food and supplies and clothing to Ukrainian refugees in Poland. And so we raised a little bit of money to help. And Maryanna Harstad, had a delightful visit with her at her home in Minneapolis. And one of the benefits of this project was just meeting some incredibly wonderful, good people. I thought I would talk just a little bit about how this came about. I've always been concerned about the environment, and that led me to a lot of activities, including being involved in the St. Croix River Association. And we decided to do a film about the St. Croix River on the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And I wanted a Native voice to tell the Native story. And someone made the suggestion that I contact Sharon Day. And so I did. I called her up, said I'd love to have lunch with you and tell you about a project. And I made my pitch, and she said she agreed to do it. And she was just a tremendous addition to that film. She opens it. She's the middle, a big piece of the middle, and it was her words at the conclusion. And that film was in partnership with TPT and is on their website. It's called The Wild and Scenic St. Croix. It's also on my website, afton-films.com. So that's how Sharon and I met, and out of that grew a wonderful friendship. And in the process, I learned about Sharon's mission in life, which has been really devoted to not only environmental cause, but but spiritual causes and also Native American causes. And she's the executive director of the Indigenous Peoples Task Force, which she created, and they do a lot of incredible things. One of the things that grew out of my connection with Sharon is an interest in these Nibby walks or water walks, and I signed up to do the Phelan Creek. That was my first of 3 water walks I participated in. And I found out that in order to go on that walk, I have to go to a session with others who are going to be on the walk and get, indoctrinated into this, what was going on here, the ceremony, have the respect you have to show. I can't take pictures during certain parts of it because it's sacred. And anyway, the long and short of it, it was a great and spiritually uplifting experience for this agnostic, a deeply rich spiritual experience for me. And I highly recommend participation. And what these water walks are about, they're not a publicity stunt, they are a prayer to the water. Rich with ceremony, customs. The logistics of these water walks are really remarkable. The Phelan Creek one was relatively easy, but when you walk the entire length of the Mississippi River or around Lake Superior, imagine what's involved in terms of providing participants with food, drink, and lodging, and transportation. It's remarkable what Sharon's put together. Fast forward to this exhibition. What happened was, I was drawn to go to a protest of Line 3 up in Grand Rapids. It was probably in March of 2022. My wife thought I was going there primarily to see Jane Fonda, but she was wrong. That was part of it, but I wanted to be there. And when I got there, it was really interesting. This was a walk that was grandmothers. That was the whole theme of it. And certainly in particularly in the, maybe it's Ojibwe, but it might be also Dakota. The idea is to think ahead for 7 generations. And so this was a gathering of grandmothers to protest Line 3. And there wasn't a lot of publicity in order for me to go. I actually was only invited to go because I had a connection with the Native American community. And when I got there and I saw these faces, but the one face in particular just inspired me to do this. And if you go through the gallery, look at the face of Tanya Abed. Her face is etched with a life that's been very difficult, but she's a fiery spirit who she's on fire about protecting water and indigenous treaty rights. And just her face is what, it just dawned on me, I've got to do a photo exhibition honoring these Native American women who are doing their part to protect water, which is so basic to life on the planet. So I knew I couldn't do this unless I had a list of Native Americans who were meritorious of being honored. And of course, it had to be women because of the role women have played in Native culture in protecting water. So I got a hold of Sharon and I said, I want to do this. What do you think of it? She said, yeah, okay, you can do it. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I need to know who's meritorious of that kind of recognition. And I need their contact information. I need your permission to say that I can do this. And she said yes. And basically, every single one of the Native American women I contacted that I was able to reach said yes. And it wasn't, I think, because of my charm. It was because I said, Sharon Day said I should contact you. And so I think there are 21 of them, and every one of them was an enriching experience. I think because of Sharon's endorsement, they were remarkably open and unguarded in their comments. Because of the photo exhibition, there's not enough space to put the gist of what they told me. And I highly recommend you go to my website and read their entire bios because their lives have been extremely interesting, and it was a very moving and enriching experience to have these conversations. So again, a little transition here. For me, what I'm doing at this point in my life is out of a concern about the planetary homicide that we're engaged in right now. The human assault on the Earth's water is profound. It's global and accelerating. It rivals climate change in terms of a chief existential threat. 97% of the Earth's water is salt water, 1% is consumable by humans. Aquifers are being mined with little concern for future generations. So the Native Americans get it, and they're dramatizing the problem. And that's what really was another inspiration in all this. And I thought it was important to honor them and do my part to tell their story and to do my part to try to educate people. And I'll conclude by saying that Teddy Roosevelt once said, everyone has to do what they can where they are with what they have. And that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what we all need to do. And with that, I'll conclude, and I hope that my friends here have some words that they want to say to this audience today. Sharon, do you want to take the lead? Okay. Maryanna Harstad.
Good morning, I'm Maryanna Harstad. Thinking about my relationship with the water, I'm an adoptee, and that's not really that uncommon a thing, foster children and adoptees in the American Indian community. I grew up in a non-native family, or well, actually, most of my siblings are native, but my parents, I spent a lot of time in a family cabin that my dad had on the Leech Lake Reservation, and later found out that that's my home reservation when I was 20. So things cycle. And I spent my summers outdoors all the time, led me to a career in the Department of Natural Resources. At my first job there was a rivers planner, and I guess what I want to, at some point, as I became a parent myself, I felt a need to reconnect with part of me that had no connections. And I started to learn at that time about my own biological history, and kind of learning a little about language, a little about culture, a little about ceremony, and gosh, I don't even know where I was in that journey. But in 2011, I did know Sharon comes from a big family, and a dynasty. No. The Boysford dynasty. I just made that up. Anyways, I knew some of her sisters from working at the American Indian Center, and heard about this water walk, this Nibby walk, the Four Directions walk. And Sharon was leading a group from the Gulf of Mexico to Lake Superior. And there were other walks coming from other directions, from the Four Directions. And maybe I don't maybe I don't think things through very well. Or just feel moved, I guess. Maybe that's a better way to say it. But I phoned up Sharon and I said, hey, I want to join this walk and I have this amount of time free. And Sharon's like, we don't need you then. We need you in this amount of time. Like, oh, okay, I don't know. My first experience, you don't say no. Kind of what John was saying, you know, all of us agreed to meet with John because Sharon had told him it was okay. So, drove down to Missouri in a car that had a couple 100,000 miles on it, walked with them, and it was the beginning of, you know, a really important part of my life that's continued for the last now 15 years. It really was the first time I'd met Sharon that I know of, and ceremony has become a really important element in my journey and hopefully where I'm going, and I can do better, but it's growth. It's really good for me. Miigwech.
Hi, I don't really have anything prepared, but I guess I'll talk about how I kind of met Sharon. So after the No Dapple movement at Standing Rock, I'd gone probably spent about 8 days every month. I, at the time, was working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a realty specialist, and what we did was we bought land to expand the boundaries of all of our refuges. And, you know, on Facebook, I had started seeing a lot of information coming up about the fight for, you know, the Missouri. And I had been gone from the States for a very long time. And I just returned back to, you know, Minnesota, and I think it really hit me about how, you know, native lands, the water was all under attack, and working where I had been working was another kind of a wake-up call for me as how I was trying to figure out how I was going to connect back to, you know, my homelands here, and I think it was after everything at Standing Rock, many of us started getting invited to speak about our experiences and share. For me, it was sharing my photos and different things, and that's how I'd met Sharon. And she was having us do some things about like our favorite body of water, and then talking about it. And then Sharon also started discussing the water walks. And that kind of sat with me for a while, and I thought, wow, this is really amazing. So the first chance I get, I'm going to see what this is all about. And so the Missouri River Walk is the first walk I did with Sharon. And I could only do like a short segment of it. And I don't know if it was the heat or if it was the lack of sleep, but I remember a small segment of the walk that I was doing, and I don't know, maybe I didn't feel good, but I felt like the heat was really getting to me. And you know, there's always someone behind you making sure that you're okay when you're walking. And just in one moment, I felt like there were a lot of people behind me. And you know, and I don't know, I think that was just like, I think that part for me was really profound, and I knew that I needed to start doing more, not only, you know, publicly, but also personally, you know, taking care of how I consume water, taking care about how I protect and speak up about things that really impact, you know, the earth, and how we care for things. I remember going out to eat and always bringing my water bottle with me, so that I think it was Josephine or something on a walk that you were on, talking about, how the experience was pouring water, like the water I wasn't drinking, into my water container. I do that every time I go somewhere, or I just don't take it. And I mean, it's just like little tiny things like that that were starting to be unconsciously normal for me. And so, I don't know, I mean, I'm just amazed at the things that Sharon does to protect and speak up for those that can't speak up, that don't have a voice. And it's really made an impact on my life, and I'm so grateful for not only what Sharon does, but also the friendships and the people that I've got to connect with, just knowing her. And so I kind of don't know what else to say, but I just think that anything that you can do in your life, to your daily life, to protect, save water. Oh, here's an example. I had a leak in the faucet in my kitchen, and it was a few days before the plumber could come. So I got containers, and when that leak kept dripping, I didn't let it go down the drain, I just saved it. And then I would just put the water in my plants or do whatever with it. So there's little tiny things that you can do. Don't waste it, don't let it get away from you. Because, in many places in America, Pine Ridge, different places, they don't have water. The Navajo, the Diné people, they have to go a long way to just have that small resource that we take for granted every single day. And, and I always think about those things when, just in my daily life, in anything that I do. And I often get after even some of the people that I work with about their consumption and separating even just the recycling, because those little things have a really big impact. So, I don't know, with that, thank you.
Buju and Denwe Maganandok, Giwe Dene, Benesh, Kwe Indigenous, Magizi, Indundan, Makwa Indundan, Gawa Bignakag, Indunjaba. And what I said was a hello in my Ojibwe language. We are all relatives, so I just welcome all of you and thank you for coming. My Indian name, my spirit name is Giwe Dene Benesikwe, which is Northern Thunderbird Woman. I come from White Earth. I'm of the Bear and the Eagle clan. And again, thank you, John, and all of you for hosting this exhibit, but more so honoring water. Just like Maryanna, I was adopted out of my tribe at 8 weeks, and probably didn't come back to, wasn't brave enough to come through those doors, probably about 2011, and started really looking into my, where I came from, and that call that I had as a little girl that I didn't know what was that call. And very much like Maryanna, I grew up on the lakes in Detroit Lakes, only 20 miles from my reservation, not knowing. But always getting called by something, and I didn't know what it was. And so fast forward, I was searching. I had my first son and gave birth to him, and when he came through, there was something big, and I was looking at him, and I'm like, I could tell, like, yes, I am Indian. I know I'm Indigenous. I don't know, when I was growing up, I grew up in a Fargo Moorhead area, so it was all white. I thought I was Jan Brady until I looked in the mirror and I realized I'm not. But I really tried to be that, fit in, and I knew that there was that call that I was like, what was that? Anyways, water was my sanctuary. That was my healer. That's where I went when the problems were bad. We owned a lake, and I grew up on the lake all summer long, and that's where I was. And, back in, when there was no phones, there was no, we just all we could do is just play in that water. And then in Fargo, we had a big ditch, and that's where I was finding crayfish, and got teased a lot by my mom that I was a tomboy. But I just was always outside. I didn't, like, that was my sanctuary. So once I had my son, though, something deeper was calling to me, and I think it was he looked like me, and there was that bloodline. There was something inside of me that he carried, and that I had to honor that. And as my boys, I have 2 boys, and as they grew up, they're like, why do we look different? Because we're up in Anoka, and we didn't have a lot of Indigenous people around us. And I remember my one son was looking at me, and he's like, where are these hands from? They're not like my, dad's family. They're not like yours. And I just started going, okay, it's time. I need to really figure out where I'm from. And so luckily we had the internet, and so I Googled adoptee, like White Earth. I just started, finding all this, trying to find where I should start. And luckily I found an adoptee group in Minneapolis ran by Sandy Whitehawk. And she had a Native group that would meet every month in Maryanna. That's where I met Maryanna, and we would meet and we would just tell our stories, and that's where it started. And then I'm like, okay. So as I was reading on the internet, back it up, I was up at White Earth. White Earth did a beautiful homecoming for us adoptees, and it was a welcome home ceremony. And so it was 3 days. They did ceremonies, they did teachings, they did just amazing stuff. And Sharon's sister was there doing some of the teachings and the ceremonies, and it was Doreen Day. And she said something that hit me, and it was earth-shattering, and it was, as an Ojibwe woman, one of our roles is to pray for the water. It hit me, and I'm like, that's it. Water, yes, like, the water's been calling to me. It's my security. And so I went back to the internet, and I started seeing stuff on Grandma Josephine Mendon in Bonn, and she was doing this water walk around Lake Superior. And I thought, but I'm not Indian enough. I don't know my culture. I don't know all this stuff. And at that time I had little ones, and I couldn't leave, and it was on Earth Day, and my husband's birthday is on Earth Day, so I'm like, which one do I pick? So I'm like, okay, honey, you win this time. So anyways, long story short, Phelan came along, and I started reading more about the Sharon Day, and it was just visceral in my body every time it would come up, and I said, okay, that's the one I'm going to do. And so as we walked and we prayed, and growing up in a Catholic family, you pray a lot, but there's things that's negative and positive with that experience. The one thing was the spirituality. I realized I am a spiritual person. I did that walk, and something again awoke in me that it was prayer. Prayer can help. One person can pray, 2 people, but we know that more than is the best way. So I went out to Standing Rock also. And there was these amazing women up on that front line that were just incredible. And I found myself next to the water praying. So I think that's where my role is that spiritual person. And I think walking with Sharon, it shows me that, that spiritual, that quietness. We all have our roles. All of them are important. And I think that's one of my roles. But learning those songs, community, where everyone is welcome in that circle. Like Sharon makes that really possible, that we all can show up. I was really proud that my son and my husband last year came to the Rum River. We grew up, my family being up in Anoka, that's our little family river. And it made me think, I'm quieter, I just do my due diligence about something, and that was water. And I always talk to my kids about it, I always talk to my husband about it, and they're great supporters of it. But finally they took a walk, and I wasn't ever gonna tell them, like, come on, let's do this, and I wanted them to it come from them. And so when they did, it meant so much. And I said, I guess today is that piece is, like, I take water every day and it's on my windowsill in a copper vessel and I connect with it. I am a Reiki master teacher, and so I'm really curious about that energy, that we're all energy, but we're also all water. So if all of you can just take a glass of water every morning and connect with it and pray with it, it just takes one person, right? And then pretty soon maybe your kids or your grandkids will connect too with that water. Jimmy Quich.
I'm short. Buju Ninindwe Maganidug, Nagamo Mayangan Indishna Kaz, Wabashe Shindodam, Ojibwe Kwayan down, Dishnisho Madeo, Madewana Kwayan down. So I want to begin by just saying, what I said to you was greetings, my relatives. My name is Singing Wolf, and I'm from the Martin clan, and I'm an Ojibwe woman, and I'm second degree Madewan, and also one of the women, our lodge, the Three Fire Lodge, lifted up 2008, I think, as one of the head water women. And but as Ojibwe women, we were all Mede-Wanakwe. We were all responsible for taking care of the water. And there's two things I want to say today. And I was invited here a month ago or something like that. It was in December to be the guest sermonizer. Anyhow, one of the things that I had been thinking a lot about is that we have to just stop. We have to stop extracting oil and precious metals from the earth, because there's no safe way to do that. And when we do that, we are, in fact, raping our mother. Think about that. We are raping our mother. And I remember being in ceremony up in northern Wisconsin, 10, 11 years ago. And it was during the time of an eclipse. And we have always been scientists. We've always been astronomers. We have, since our villages, our dwellings were built in relation to the cosmos, in relationship to the equinox in the solstice. And what our teacher said at that time was that in that time, so we believe that when all of the planets were set into motion into the heavens, and then the sun came into being, that grandfather, Mishomis, and then the earth, Arnimama Ki, the earth mother, came into being. And from those two planets, the earth was born. And so they're on opposite ends of the universe, right? But during an eclipse, it's a time where the moon, without the sun being in the way, can be in direct communication with the earth. And I remember our teacher, he said, think of what the moon, Ninokomis Bagizes. Think about what she is feeling when she looks at the earth today. I grew up on the Iron Range. The Iron Range looks very different today than it did when I was 5 or 6 years old. These mountains never existed. Those are all tailings dumps. There are rivers, rust-colored rivers that exist that were never there before. You know, those are the water that they use to wash the mine. So he said to us, think of what the moon must think when she looks at her daughter today. And so it's all of this excavation for diamonds, for copper, for precious metals, and of course the oil. It's for that this excavations and the U.S. imperialism continues today. It is why we went into another country, Venezuela, and snatched their president for oil. To make us what? Richer? It's not going to make me richer, but it's going to make that 1% richer. And we don't need it. Like, we do not need oil anymore. You know, we could be doing more investigation into solar, wind, hydrogen, into those sources of energy. So the way that we can heal the waterways, I believe, would heal themselves, left to their own devices. And there have been books written about this. I live on a farm, and when I got outside this morning, I looked down at the muckers I had on, and, you know, they had a little chicken poop on them, so I had to change my shoes in the car. But I've been on this farm since just before COVID. And just in those short years, 6 years, you can see the changes in the land. We only do regenerative farming. We only use the compost for fertilizer. I have a couple of goats. And, but you see how there's more animals. Every year, there's some new animals that come. Last year, we have beavers on the little lake. I saw an otter. Nicola has a film of the otter going down towards the lake. You know, we have, of course, deer all the time walking through. But we see so many new animals every year. And that's because it's a sanctuary. It's a safe place. And we could do so much more of that. I mean, I only have this little 40 acres, but, you know, I see more and more, you know, and that's hopeful to see more conservation coming into being. And that's a beautiful thing. So the earth can heal herself. Our waterways can heal themselves if we stop the polluting. We just have to stop. And I'm a recovering, I don't even like that word anymore, recovering. I've been healing for the last 50 years from drugs and alcohol. But in order for that healing to happen, I had to stop. And it wasn't easy. You know, I'm grateful to have had a mother who had the courage to say to me, if you don't do this, I will do this. And, you know, I thought she was bluffing. until I got a call at 4 o'clock that day from this counselor, said, did you make a decision? And I said, yes. I knew my mother wasn't bluffing then. Of course, my mother worked at a halfway house. So, but anyhow, so it's been a really good 50 years of healing. And part of that journey also was, I did all the things that, I went to treatment. I saw a therapist for off and on for years. But it wasn't until I was in Nova Scotia at a Two-Spirit gathering, and there were these elders there, women who I went to, and I asked them to have a ceremony for me. Not, in my own still sort of selfish way, I didn't think about them. They all said yes. And they were in their 60s and 70s, and they had to get on their hands and knees and crawl into this lodge. And, they had bad backs and bad knees, and once they got inside, we had little wood stools for them to sit on. And I believe like it was in that ceremony that it took everything else maybe to get me there, but it was in that last ceremony with them that the transition really took place fully, and have done. I'm so impressed hearing my sisters talking about the daily rituals they do. About the only thing that I do consistently is I'm lucky to wake up in the morning, look out my window, and go out and feed the goats and the chickens and give them water. But when I look out that window, I'm so grateful to have this little piece of land to steward. I lived in St. Paul for many years too, in Highland Park, and my grandson still lives there. And that little house there, we took care of that land too. Never used any chemicals, anything. And when I moved out to the farm, my grandson said to me, "Graham, the house will still be the way it always was. And when people come to town and they need a place to stay, I will still host them." And I thought, yes, he did learn some things. So anyhow, that's all I have to say. We'll be walking the Mississippi River this year from, in 2013, we walked from the headwaters to Fort Jackson, Mississippi, which is about 90 miles south of New Orleans. This time we're going to gather the water there, that water that is so polluted. And we're going to test a theory, and that is to see if by gathering that water that's so polluted and carrying it every day in ceremony and song, we'll test it down there, and then we'll test it when we get to Lake Itasca to see what changes we will find. So our website, NIBIWalk, NIBIWalk.org, there will be information about that coming up. Happy to say that I have, I believe, commitments from 6 women, or 5 women who will walk with me the entire way, and then we invite people to join us along the way. And, we're always so happy when people join us. And, but then we also have a kind of a rhythm that we get into during the week, and mostly people come on the weekends. And so it's like, like at holiday in your home, where all the relatives come, and you're so happy to see them, And then when they go, you're happy to see them go, because, you're going to go back into this, rhythm you've established. But we do love when people come, and we've had, Camille White Rabbit, and was 86 years old when she walked with us, not once but twice, and had a cane, and when she would pick up that water and walk, you know, it was so uplifting to us that she would do that. And Camille, her husband, Reverend White Rabbit, was my first boss. So it was so nice to have folks like that. And when we walked Lake Superior couple of years ago, to commemorate Josephine's walk around Lake Superior, Josephine's sister walked with us, and that was also very, very uplifting. Emily, you were there that day when she was there, yes. So that's all I have. And John, you want to field questions or? Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let me just say, you can see how enriched my life has been because of my connection with these wonderful people. I feel very blessed. Also, I'm approaching 50 years of sobriety on May 8th, so we've got that going for us, don't we? And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce two other people who are here. My wife, who puts up with all these adventures I have, Gloria. And my son, Tom, right next to me. So are there any questions, any comments, thoughts? Go ahead.
I'd love to hear more about your walk, your upcoming walk from the Mississippi, and how long you think it will take. And just would love to hear more about the walk you're planning, when you're starting, and how long you expect it to take, and where are you looking for people to put you up? Are you camping? Like, just some of those details.
Yeah, right now the plan is to begin on September 1, hoping the heat will have abated a little bit down there. And when we walked it the first time, it took us 63 days. We started on March 1st, walked through blizzards, and we didn't have warm weather till I think we got to the end, the southern portion of Iowa. But it's not going to take us that long because I've learned a lot, and so we'll follow. The route will be the route we walked when we walked north to south, and I don't know, Emily, we'll be able to take that same route and put it on the website. There's a spot GPS on the Pale, and there's a woman, Joanne Robertson in Canada, Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, who has followed every single one of my walks, and she's there, and she puts a little note at the end of the day